There is a kind of loyalty that does not come from money. It does not come from contracts or fear or the polished promises men make over whiskey and candlelight. It comes from something older, something that lives in the chest, quiet, permanent, and absolutely fatal. Ryu Sehun had that kind of loyalty. He had carried it for 8 years, through 34 countries, across 100 rooms where the wrong word meant a bullet, a knife, or silence that never ended. He had taken 2 shots protecting a man he did not love, broken 4 fingers defending a man he did not always respect, and stood motionless at the edge of the dark so many times that the dark had started to feel like home. He was the Yu family shadow, and shadows, by definition, ask for nothing. But here's the thing about shadows. They see everything. The Yu compound sat at the edge of Bukhansan, high enough above Seoul that the city looked peaceful from there. All glittering lights and quiet distance, the way beautiful lies always look from far away. Sehun had arrived at the compound at age 26, 2 years out of military intelligence, recommended by a general who owed the Yu patriarch a debt that had never been spoken aloud. He had expected a year, maybe 2. Clean work, discreet protection, then out. 8 years later, he was still there. He told himself it was because the job was complex. Because Yu Changsik, the patriarch, the boss, the man whose name made city councilors go quiet, was a difficult principal. High profile, constantly moving, constantly threatened. He told himself this every morning. Every morning, it was partly true. But when Yu Changsik's wife, Shin Jun, passed through the east corridor at 7 a.m. in that particular way she had, one hand trailing along the wall, like she was always slightly tired of the world she had been placed in, Sehun's chest did something it had no business doing. And the reason he stayed became considerably less professional. He never spoke of it. He barely allowed himself to think it. A bodyguard who falls in love with the principal's wife is not a bodyguard. He is a liability, a scandal waiting to happen, a man who has already failed at the most basic thing his job requires. He has a weakness. And in the Yu family's world, weaknesses were not personal problems. They were invitations. So Sehun kept his face flat and his distance precise, and he watched her from exactly the correct number of meters, and he told himself that the hollow ache in his ribs was just the altitude. On the morning of October 14th, none of that mattered anymore. The call came at 2:17 a.m. Not a phone call. A sound. Specifically, the sound of a door that should not be opening. The East Service entrance, coded, alarmed, monitored by 3 cameras. Sehun had walked that route 4,000 times. He knew it sounds the way a pianist knows a single wrong key in a chord. He was moving before he was fully awake. The corridor was empty when he arrived. The door was closed again. The alarm had not triggered, which meant whoever opened it had the override code. And there were 11 people in this compound with the override code. And Sehun knew where every single one of them was supposed to be at 2:17 a.m. He checked the cameras. All 3 feeds for that corridor showed a static, empty hallway, looped footage. Someone had patched the system within the last 20 minutes. A professional job, an inside job. The cold that moved through Sehun then was not fear. He had been past fear years ago. It was recognition. The recognition of a man who has spent his life studying threats and has just found one he did not see coming and understands immediately how much that will cost. He spent the next 4 hours saying nothing and watching everything. What he found in those 4 hours rearranged the world. The hitman's name was Park Gunwoo, 41 years old, former military, currently operating under 3 aliases across Southeast Asia, a ghost who specialized in high-value targets and charged accordingly. Sehun had run this profile before, on different men, for different reasons. He knew what it meant when a name like this surfaced near a principal's residence. What he could not reconcile, what he sat with in the dark until his hands stopped being quite steady, was the phone number. The contact number used to reach Park Gunwoo had been routed through 2 burner networks and a foreign server. Elegant work. The kind of work that would have been invisible to anyone who had not, years ago, helped build the exact same system for a different client. Sehun had built that routing system himself. He had built it at the request of Shin Jun 3 years ago, when she told him she needed a secure channel to communicate with her family in Busan without Changsik monitoring her calls. He had built it for her without question, because he was loyal, because she had looked at him with those careful, exhausted eyes and asked him like she trusted him with something fragile, because he was, even then, already lost. He sat with this information for a long time. Then he stood up, straightened his jacket, and went to stand outside Yu Changsik's bedroom door for the morning shift, exactly as scheduled, his face giving nothing away. He watched her differently now, not with longing. With the trained, neutral observation of a man reassembling a picture he thought he understood. Every gesture, every glance, the way she spoke to the staff, warm, unhurried, never quite present. The way she watched her husband across the dinner table, a look that Sahun had once read as sadness and now could not name at all. He needed to know why. Not because it would change what he had to do. A threat had been identified. Protocol was clear. Report to the principal, neutralize the threat, protect the asset. 8 years of training pointed in one direction with the force of absolute conviction. But something in him, that inconvenient, unkillable something, needed to understand before it could act. Needed to know if the woman he had quietly loved for 3 years was a monster, or a prisoner, or something in between. On the third day, he made a mistake. He let her see him watching. She did not flinch. She did not look away. She held his gaze across the length of the garden for 3 full seconds, and in those 3 seconds something passed between them that was neither romance nor threat. It was recognition. The specific recognition of 2 people who have both been living inside the same lie and have just, simultaneously, realized the other person knows. She came to him that night. She sat across from him in the security room with her hands folded in her lap and her voice perfectly level, and she said, "How much do you know?" He told her. She listened without interrupting. When he finished, she was quiet for a moment. Then she said the thing that took everything he thought he understood and turned it completely over. Changsik ordered the murder of my brother 2 years ago. His team staged it as an accident. I have the evidence, the payments, the communications, the names. I have been building the case for 19 months. The moment I move it to the prosecutor's office, Changsik will know within hours, and I will be dead within days. She paused. I am not trying to kill my husband for power, Sahun. I am trying to survive him. The silence between them was the loudest thing Ryu Sahun had ever heard. He thought about her brother, Jung Minwo, killed in a car accident on the Gyeongju Expressway. He had been in the compound the week after. He had watched Changsik comfort her at the funeral with one hand on her back, and thought the man was, in his private moments, decent. He thought about 8 years. The things he had done in 8 years. The rooms he had stood in. The things he had not asked questions about. He thought about what loyalty actually meant when you stripped it all the way down to the bone. The hitman, he said finally. You weren't just trying to protect yourself. She met his eyes. He was going to move against me first. I received confirmation 6 days ago. How long have you known I would find out? A pause. Careful. Honest. I hoped you wouldn't. But I always thought, if anyone would, it would be you. And you came here tonight because? She looked at him with those exhausted, careful eyes and said, because you are the only person in this house I have never had to be afraid of. And I needed to know, before everything ends, whether that was true or whether I was wrong about you too. Ryu Sahun stood at the window for a long time after she left. The city below was still doing what cities do at 3 in the morning, breathing slowly, glittering quietly, keeping its infinite secrets in the dark between the lights. He had protected this view for 8 years. He had protected the man who owned it. He thought about the report he was required to file, the protocol he was required to follow, the loyalty he had structured his entire adult identity around. He thought about her brother, about a car on the Gyeongju Expressway, about a man with his hand on a grieving woman's back. Then he picked up his phone. He did not call Yu Changsik. He did not call the security team. He opened a contact he had not used in 4 years, a woman at the Serious Crimes Division who had once told him that if he ever found himself on the wrong side of the right situation, she would listen first and arrest him second. He typed 2 words. We need to talk. He sent it. Then he put the phone in his pocket, straightened his jacket, and walked back down the corridor toward the east wing, toward the door he had opened the truth through, toward the woman who had handed it to him, toward the version of himself that could not go back to what he was this morning. Because here is the thing about shadows. When the light finally shifts, they have to decide whether to follow it or to disappear.